Okay. This is another episode of Write Once, Read Many. I didn't start the music right away on purpose because I want to give people a second to get into the chat before they hear the new track, and then I will let it play. It's funny because I'm trying to kill time with like the shortest speed draw we've had for any art. It's only like 35 seconds long or something. Hey Greg. Alright, I'm gonna kick it with the music, I think, because Vic has heard this, so I'm not sure if I've played it for Greg, so I think it's gonna be a brand new experience. I hope that the volume was good on that, because I realized it played really quiet in my headphones, and I had turned down the system volume for when I was streaming with Vic before. So, yeah. But yeah, I'm a big fan of that new song. It is named after the arc we're on, Speck, Arc 30. And it's the final song of the Worm stream. Maybe a touch quiet. Alright. When we do the outro, I'll jack up the sound. Just so if people want to listen to it later, they can just play the last 2.5 minutes of the stream. I was thinking I might also release the songs as individual YouTube videos for all the ones that Scarlett has written. But, like, I kind of have to do a few things before that's possible, so. Anyway, the audience participation reminder, for 30.1, it was, what other power alterations could have helped against Scion instead of Amy working on Taylor? Vic said, that'd be cool, could do an art slideshow too. Yeah. I could, if I come up with, like, good sort of, sets of images that could definitely go with it, for, like, the sections they play over. tonight, before talking about the chapter, I wanted to talk about something. I was back on on the chapter 29.9 page and read the first comment by Wildbow, which I thought was interesting. He said, "Thanks guys for reading. Last chapter of the arc. No bloody idea what I'm doing for an interlude. A reader pointed out a bad pattern I've been falling into, and it was a really good heads up. It restructured how I wrote the end of this arc, and extended it by roughly 3 chapters. I'm glad it did what it did. Yeah, I'm glad it did what it did story-wise, but it also took that general, maybe sorta rough outline I had in my head as far as how this arc and the start of the next would go, and it nuked it. So I feel like I'm on shakier ground, and again, no idea what I'm doing interlude-wise. There's no bonus chapter this Thursday. I'd love to do one, and I'm more disappointed than any of you, but I'm traveling, so it's not easy to pull off. In similar circumstances, I've pulled all-nighters to get chapters done in the past, but those same circumstances led to what I feel is the weakest arc. I don't want to do that at this juncture." And I was kind of blown away. I checked the dates. Between him saying that, he had no idea what he was going to do, and he totally changed the plan, and he's traveling. Then 4 days later, interlude 29.x was whipped up, the Contessa chapter. It's one of the longest chapters. It's got so much information that it adds to the story in terms of character backstory, motivations, blind spots, weaknesses of one of the most powerful characters, Contessa. Fills in so many blanks for things that have happened in the past. And because of the way she remembers her trigger event, this lore and backstory isn't just for us. It's been informing her decisions from before the story even started. And it all stems back to this initial moment that she decided that she needed to stop and remember the entities and fight back against them at all cost. Vic says, "Wildbow's fuck, how are we gonna beat Scion?" Yeah, I also went back. I did my best to go back through the comments and see if Wildbow had left a comment or if somebody had left a comment addressing Wildbow where it sort of explains what he's talking about of the bad pattern that he had been falling into. I was really interested to see what that would be. And I'm glad that it ended up how it is, because whatever thing he thought was boring got replaced by, these incredible chapters. The entire ending of Venom and all of Speck. But, and we would not have gotten the Contessa chapter, so. There was also another comment that I wanted to highlight from the release day of 29.x, written by Great Worm Gold. And it said, Skitter's unrestricted power has nothing to do with bugs. If it was totally unrestricted, she would probably gain the ability to control all creatures and or shards. And then upon the release of 30.1, so the chapter we're reading today, then Papa Goose replied, "Interestingly precognizant, and honestly a great direction as the administrator shard of Taylor's comes to its original function." And then the next and last reply from Great Worm Gold was, "I was surprised too." And it's just so funny. It's totally calls exactly what's going to happen. Nah, that surprised me still. Anyway, the themes here that I thought were most important are her Taylor's loss of control. We've seen that strengthening or adding new aspects to powers will often lead to drawbacks in other areas. Let's say when we saw whenever Ingenue is talked about, applying her power, it can strengthen Chevalier's power, but it gets all kind of hard to keep together and stuff. So there's always swingy downsides to these things. And Taylor gains access to control over parahumans, but her radius of control of bugs is reduced. The lower bound on the size of bugs she can control increases, so part of her swarm that's there is like lost to her, and she can only use high-level swarm tactics instead of intricate maneuvers that require precise control over like every individual bug. And then on top of the power stuff, she of course loses control over her body and her ability to communicate in language. Vic said, yeah, can Taylor control all humans or only parahumans? That is something that I will clarify and figure out by reading the remaining chapters. I had thought that she could only control parahumans and bugs, because I thought that what she was tapping into was their shard, essentially, and she was controlling them from the shard end, not the, like, human brain end. But then I was reading one of the Parahumans wiki articles, and it said, like, all sapient creatures, and then I was like, I was confused. I didn't know where they were getting that from. Yeah, I'll double check through the chapters by next time I stream, and I just can't remember any instance of her taking over a non-parahuman. And we don't get an opportunity to see that at all this time either, because in these chapters there are only parahumans. Well, this chapter, I suppose. And then also the other theme was, I just wrote down Regent-style body control, but what I meant was more like Taylor is willing to use tactics now because they're at her fingertips that previously she had essentially talked about as, like, bottom of the barrel, like, evil guy stuff that she didn't want to have to deal with, like Regent's full, like, power over people. Vic says, shards are actually just like big crabs. Yeah. Yeah, I guess there aren't any other themes that I've named here, but I'm sure there's more to mine than just those main things. I'm gonna get into it though. 30.1. Taylor doesn't have a trigger event, which she knew that she wouldn't, but she had still, like, convinced herself she would somehow. Yeah, she had already been told she wouldn't, and still thought she might have a crazy vision anyway. Instead of that, she immediately starts having control issues with her power. She lost half her range, like, right off the bat, immediately. Normally, when her range fluctuates, I sort of imagine it, like, growing or shrinking in like, you know, expanding or contracting, but not just, like, bursting to different sizes. And this time, it, like, she says it's like a guillotine blade drops down and cuts her range in half. And then it seems like from there, she slowly loses more and more. Yeah, this is when she's already losing abilities she's had since the very beginning, like singling out individual bugs or giving exact instructions, like stuff she talked about in, like, chapters 2 and 3 kind of thing. Vic says, yeah, usually she doesn't notice range changes until it's already happened. I suppose that's true. So maybe it is happening in jumps and spurts sometimes when it's upward as well. There's a moment when Taylor notices Tattletale and thinks about reaching out to her, then doubles down into needing to focus on what's happening with her power. She decides she needs perfect clarity about the changes going on. And it's unclear if she would have been able to speak if she had tried to call out now, but she doesn't get another chance to talk to Lisa. And then I just, because the document style I'm using doesn't allow emojis, I have an emoticon of semicolon underscore semicolon, old school crying but eyes still open face. And then I got this quote here. I felt a pang of guilt, and I was surprised at how intense it was. Guilt, shame, a kind of intense loneliness. Taylor doesn't seem to have her normal, like, internal control of her emotions. She can normally, like, you know, obviously she gets called stuff like the queen of compartmentalization and stuff. And I should have put this in the themes. It's like the 3-beat reversal, only obviously many more than 3, of, like, Taylor's always had this incredible emotional compartmentalization, and now it's just gone. And yeah, when she's trying to stave off the feelings, she's thinking, this way lies madness. But it doesn't connect in her mind, and her control issues are, like, seemingly impairing more of her cognitive functions already. Memories start to distract her, first leaving the Undersiders to join the wards and being isolated in jail, stewing in her emotions. It's like a complicated mix, but importantly, included in both of them was a kind of like peace that came from accepting her circumstances at the time. And this is the first time we see the passengers start to communicate with Taylor by feeding back specific memories with like complicated emotional texture. There's no just like direct language communicating with it, but it can feed her memories to be like, what about this? Taylor's heart rate and breathing start to get faster, and from here on, the control issues are happening with her body as well as her power and mind. The sky behind me was bright blue, almost taunting me. Blue was the color I wore when I became a hero, a failure. It made for long shadows, extending down the length of the cave in the direction of the others, in the direction of Doormaker's portal to Earth Gimel. I pulled that out, of course, because it sort of explains the art that we're seeing here. That's her at the mouth of the cave near the end of the chapter when she's sort of, I suppose that'd be just before she starts, like, jetpacking around. Flight pack. It's not a jetpack, but you get it. But yeah, I really like the art that Vic has done. When I was initially kind of reviewing it back to her, I hadn't seen it on like a full-size screen yet. I had only seen it on my phone screen. I love the little scribbles of light in the darkness around the cave mouth. And I love the sort of the texture of the light on the floor and stuff, and like of the light in the background of the, you know, the blue sky. It all feels like it's actually drawn on like a textured paper instead of being digital art. Yeah, I love this scratchy style that we've got going. And I kind of wanted to ask, is that lump that's on the bottom right, is that Amy? But I'll move on as Vic perhaps responds about the sad lump. Yes, as Taylor continues to lose range and control, she starts getting really worried. And when she tries talking to Amy, she can't speak. She had been focusing on her swarm during the process and can't get back to a normal level of body awareness. It's like she's talked in the past about like, and we've even seen it from Brian's perspective way back in arc, I think it was arc 15's interlude. It's like when he was stressed out, he followed her advice and let himself like spread himself out into the bugs. And so she is sort of doing that thing that she talks about that used to like calm her down, but then when she tries to snap back, she doesn't snap back. She's just stuck in the like zoomed out bug mode. Vic says, "Yeah, that's Amy. Can't you tell from her rat-like posture?" Which got a laugh out of Greg. And then at one point, it seems like she was feeling Amy's guilt and shame in this scene. Yeah, no, I think that when she sees those first memories, like that is her starting to tap into the people around her. I kind of thought it was like doing double duty. These memories come to her unbidden, and she doesn't really understand how, like why or how. And I thought it was like even before she had full control over people, it was like her mind reaching out and making the connection to them. Because we'll see later, when she controls people, like that will start to happen automatically as a way to relay how they're doing when she focuses on them to her. Vic says, Taylor is like, why am I thinking about guilt? I've done nothing wrong. That's true. I feel, okay, I will have to, by the end of the series, pull up the classic meme that I have saved somewhere of, it's a Parks and Rec thing, but it's Mona Lisa Saperstein saying, I have done nothing wrong ever. And then her dad, played by Henry Winkler, being like, that's true, and what is it? That's true, and I love you. Yeah, that's what he says. And it's just like the most Taylor thing ever. Where was I? Yeah, now her body feels piecemeal. She can focus on doing individual things, and everything else on her body goes into, like, autopilot. And it's reminiscent of her passenger operating parts of her swarm when she was unconscious or distracted in the past. Which she always had that, like, all the way back to when she gets knocked out in, like, Arc 4. But it becomes the most apparent when she's really focused on it in, like, Arc 22, because she's, like, passed out after she kills Tag, and then her bugs, like, make all these, like, traps and stuff for people. They're hanging out strings and, like, flying around the building. So now that's kind of how she controls her own body. Great. Amy seems to realize that Taylor needs control, which Taylor's like thinking, but she can't actually do anything to say it to her. But as she's gaining some of her control back, she starts losing more range again. Every action they take seems to degrade one area faster than it can fix another. And desperately thinking for Panacea to stop, like she thinks like, stop. Then the swarm, unbidden, attacks Amy. Bugs are now like acting on subconscious and only coordinating as much as they would under like a pheromone. So she doesn't have like supernatural ruthless skitter control. She's only got like in real life you could spray somebody with wasp pheromones and then release wasps. You could be an evil Taylor in real life with this level of control. And then Tattletale notices that when the bugs start attacking Amy, she notices, and Amy just falls the fuck over from the attack bugs. Shit, fuck, says Tattletale. Rushing over, she confronts Taylor immediately. She's like, what did you do, Taylor? And the answer to that is unclear to Taylor. She's having trouble connecting the dots and such right now. Let me scroll. But yeah, the attempts at self-assessment aren't looking good for Taylor. The gravity of the issues she'll have going forward seem to hit her in like waves, and it happens for like the rest of the chapter where she'll kind of realize something again. And they're getting worse as she sees the reactions of more people to her. Lung is tensed for a fight with flames rolling over him, but he's not approaching or attacking. Bonesaw's still in the room. She's crouched and getting ready to get the hell out of there. And it strikes Taylor as seeming like a wild animal when she looks at Bonesaw. Noting that it's like how Bonesaw acted before when she was with the Slaughterhouse 9, except that she's not doing like the little girl routine. She's just doing the like hyper competent murder part of it. Probably most reminiscent of like the part where she's running away from Taylor in the school in Arc 14, except without the little girl giggling. Taylor knows everyone's focusing on her and is like, even though she's on the verge of having a panic attack, she can't do any normal stuff to regulate her emotions with her body, on top of the fact that she's stuck posing like a weird creep. No matter what she does, like, you know, the rest of her body kind of does freaky stuff, which is only fueling the feeling that everyone's staring at her. And trying to clear her head a little, she like closes her eyes, and then like the second she does that, Bonesaw does indeed run the fuck away, and Tattletale's sort of at the range of Taylor's power, studying her with her, you know, classic Tattletale power. Everything's welling up in Taylor, everything welling up in Taylor causes her to almost fall over also. And then her leg catches her as she's falling. And this is when she realizes that her passenger is controlling her body. And instead of like freaking out or anything, which you would probably see a lot of characters do, she thinks, I guess we're going to have to learn to work together here. Which seems to calm her down a little, which I find very funny. Canary walks into the situation, and she can tell something is horribly wrong with Weaver by the way that she's standing all fucked up and probably still like shaking her fist. It mentioned earlier that whenever she's not focused on her good hand, then like she's just kind of waving it as a fist in the air. Like, as sad as this is, it's also hilarious. Like, just Taylor like kind of vibing out and like waving her fist in the air and going like an angry cat. And oh yeah, and there's like tears in her eyes and snot running down her face. She's like having a hard time controlling her breathing, so like when she's huffing out these big like nose exhalations, it's just like slowly getting snot on her face. Tattletale tries to get Canary to back off, and she says it's for like letting Taylor get her bearings, but it's kind of like it feels like Tattletale just needs to like keep it together, and she needs Canary to not be asking questions. Taylor's waiting for someone to tell her what's going on, because even though she knows the like individual facts about the situation, she can't see things as a whole and is like super confused. Another quote here. It was easier to talk to my passenger than it was to speak up and answer the question. Speaking up meant voicing everything that was wrong. My confusion, the fears, the worries, the fact that my body, my mind, and my emotions all felt entirely unhinged. Speaking meant trying to talk around the growing lump in my throat. I think she's sort of coming up with mental excuses why she doesn't want to speak, but the truth is that she's already unable to. Tattletale yells at Taylor that she never learned to ask for help, more like forcing other people to help in moments of crisis when they can't refuse. Amy's having like a full-on panic attack at having more or less ruined Taylor's mind. It's unclear to me if she's fully under Taylor's control or if she's just already like, oh no! Vic says, best TT monologue. Get her! No, we read that. Was it me? Something grotesque? Horrible? Had I changed? No, I had taken stock of myself. I'd seen myself, and I was still the same, as far as I could tell. 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, a working nose, ears, and mouth. 1 missing hand, but that was to be expected. That's like a classic Taylor. It's like, of course I'm, missing a hand or 2. Vic says, I think Amy can't move. That's probably true. The reason I was confused as to where it was is because there's a point after which I thought Amy should already be under her control, but she's still like freaking out, mumbling and stuff. When she goes, oh God, oh shit, oh God. No, that's later. That's when she gets pulled out of Taylor's. Anyway, let me get back to where I was, and then I'll get a better sense of things. Yeah, so still calling out and trying not to berate Taylor while also confronting her. Tattletale's now hiding behind Lung, who's beginning to transform. Taylor thinks is he biding his time? Which, fair enough is the first thing to think about Lung, not jumping into a fight. That would be a basic, normal move for him to bide his time, but she goes on to tell Taylor that even though she loves her and the reckless behavior has actually saved them in the past, this is too far. Taylor still doesn't know what's being referred to. I'll be honest, I was having a hard time summarizing this versus just feeling like I should read huge sections. And I still did pull out kind of large quotes, but I didn't want it to just be me reading a big chunk of the chapter. But you gotta forgive me just this once, because seeing this and knowing what you pulled hurts enough that I gotta say this. This makes me feel really sorry for your dad, because I'm starting to get a sense of what you put him through. She might as well have slapped me full force. Worse, I deserved it. So this is what it's like to be on the opposite end of a tattletale attack. There are a lot of things that Taylor thinks in italics in this chapter that I was having a hard time finding any direct quote links, but that feels like what she thought when she was stuck with Alexandria in Arc 22 in the cell. And then there's all these other ones that felt like they were reaching back to previous chapters, but I couldn't find the direct quotes. So I think right now it's kind of in a medium state, because in later chapters there are quotes that are just directly things she thought earlier in the book. And for those, I'll do my best to link them up. And then, Tattletale's next little bit was, there, I've said what I needed to say. I do have your back here. Now we need to figure out how we're going to fix this. Bonesaw returns with Marquis, Spruce, and Cinderhands. She says this isn't easily reversed. Tattletale's still trying to convince Bonesaw to help, but when Marquis starts moving forward, Tattletale calls out a warning to him. Marquis is able to use a bone pillar thingy to shove Taylor away without hurting her too much. Her head hits the floor. She's definitely still hurt, but he's not spearing her. But Taylor's also sad because she realizes that Tattletale was warning Marquis and not her. The bone branches out and sort of pins Taylor to the cave floor. She can move a bit, but she can't get out from under it. And she's near the opening scene in the artwork that's a cave mouth that opens up right to a cliff over the ocean. And then, while he's doing this pinning move, Marquis also made a huge hand of bone erupt from his wrist, which sounds fucking awesome, if I'm being honest. Like, he sounds like he looks so cool in this moment. Like, on one side, he's doing, like, the pillar push thing to, like, shove Taylor without killing her. And then he's also doing, like, hey, I know I've already got a hand at the end of this wrist, but what if I had, like, a giant body-sized hand also popping out from the same wrist? And then he uses that to scoop Amy and Lung. So you know it's got to be a pretty big hand, because he scoops Amy and Lung without burning Amy by bumping her into Lung's flames. And, like, Lung's a big guy. Like, he's 6 foot at least. And, you know, it's just impressive. Amy starts flipping out suddenly as she's further away from Taylor. And Tattletale, this is when she does the, like, oh god, oh shit, oh god, classic Amy. And then Tattletale lets them know that they have to stay at least 16 feet away from her. She's a little more vague, so, like, since she's not saying it explicitly, Taylor can't connect the dots. Like, nothing's connecting in her mind. Marquis brings up that powers changed, like, effectiveness and distance and stuff with emotions. And then Amy tells him that she had cut that connection so the range won't vary because her powers are no longer connected to the parts of her that have emotions. Which, yeah, it's wild. They, like, so many things are disconnected in Taylor's mind to sort of take away the mental blocks on her power doing its full thing and controlling people / shards. Lung comments on how he could have burned Taylor, but he would have hit Amy, who's still freaking out. And then she gets some of Tattletale's ire. Well, this is a step up for you, Ames. Don't you fucking dare. This time, you got consent before you screwed someone up beyond your ability to fix it. I'll fucking kill you. Amy. Oh, we got Alien Cat Daddy in the chat. I remember her saying 16 feet and being like, don't tell her out loud. That's funny. Well, good news for you, Alien. She did not put it together until several minutes later in this conversation. There are explosions from back through the door, kind of in the directionality of, like, further into the cave, past where the people are. And, we're able to realize, as Taylor's perspective, that this is, like, distant, like, rumbling explosions from the battle with Scion. And, let me see here, rumble. Yeah, I didn't pull this quote, but to read it out of the chapter. There was a distant rumble, intense enough it could be both heard and felt through the doorway that Doormaker had opened between us and Earth Gimel. The fight was ongoing. It sounded like maybe they were leading Scion away from the settlement. Oh, this isn't when it happened. I was thinking of a point later. I'll try and pull it up again when I get to it. But for some reason, it pulled back into my mind when it was... Yeah, there was another distant rumble. A sound like 1,000 men screaming in unison. I felt a chill. And, sometimes there's just these really evocative moments where you're like, wow, I don't know why that line worked, but it hit. Boop, boop, boop. When this is happening, Taylor thinks about Rachel and Aisha being on the battlefield with Scion and feels like she needs to get moving to join the fight. She kind of flops around ineffectually because, like before with the attack, when she was like, I need Amy to stop changing me or whatever, then it wasn't that she ever thought, I need to attack her with my bugs. It's just like her power took over, and it was like, that's a good solution to this problem. And now that her sort of unconscious biddings on her power are also unconscious biddings on her passenger moving her body, it's like trying to stand up normally, like she's not pinned to the cave floor by a big bone pillar, but she is indeed still pinned to the floor, so she's just sort of wiggling. Surveying the others, Taylor's able to figure out that the 16 feet is the distance they need to stay away from her. And Marquis apologizes for being too rough when shoving Taylor across the cave. She tries to respond and manages to say, I am. She's like shocked at the sound of her own voice, and there's kind of a realization that she's basically using her power to control her own body, like I've been describing, rather than just moving around like normal. And then she realizes she can't speak or write words with the bugs either. And then another quote, I could see Tattletale reacting too, her entire body going rigid. She took a half step back. Like, yeah, seeing Taylor attempt to write out words with the bugs and, like, fail shakes Tattletale deeply. Marquis says that it'll only be even harder to gauge how much they can trust her. Taylor realizes they aren't even trying to talk to her anymore. They're talking, like, about her, like someone who's unable to make their own decisions. Tattletale can still tell them how Taylor's doing, etc., but Marquis, like, challenges that idea, and that says that she'll have to not only convince him, but all his people, because he knows she's like a manipulator from Amy. He doesn't say this, but I'm fairly sure that, like, neither Amy nor any of the good guys actually understand how Tattletale's power works, so they don't really, like, know how she manipulates people. Like, they understand that she can get information, but even deep into Ward, people will talk about Tattletale's power like she's able to see hidden weak points. And it's like, I guess that's like a way to describe her power, but I certainly wouldn't describe it that way. Oh, Vic says she just keeps drawing drumsticks and cheese with her bugs. It's all she knows. Yeah. I think that she... Let me see if she says she tries to draw a picture. Because there is... It's right before... Okay, yeah, she does say I tried to form words to speak to or to spell. She never says I tried to form my pictogram of cheese. She probably should have done that. It's her best move. Yes. There's some back and forth between, like, Tattletale, Marquis, and Lung and Bonesaw. Lung wants to burn Taylor, but he's willing to wait for now. Marquis wants to abandon Taylor in the cave and come back here if they beat Scion and figure out how they're going to handle this. Tattletale doesn't like the compromise, and while they're talking, Taylor decides, like classic Taylor, you know what I can do in this situation? Use my power to fix the situation. Because she doesn't want to be left behind. She doesn't like all this talk of leaving her in the cave. She can use bugs, but she starts to consider the new aspect of her power. After all, she gave up so much for it, it would be a waste not to use it. I kind of imagine her, like, Bilboing from, like, Fellowship of the Ring. I don't know that actor's name, but I think we all know the moment where he's like, after all, why shouldn't I have it? Isn't that the It Came to Me moment as well? Yeah, she's having an It Came to Me moment, and She decides, I've heard this ring of power is pretty dangerous. But, I can use it without there being any problems. Oh, Taylor. After a bit more arguing between Tattletale and Marquis, he orders Lung and Cinderhands to just grab Tattletale and take her through the door to Gimel, but not to hurt her. And Lung's patience is wearing thin. He's not happy about all this namby-pamby, don't hurt people stuff. He's like, I should probably just set Tattletale on fire. I mean, he doesn't say that, but... Amy's really petty here and says about Tattletale, watch for her gun. If she gets a hand free, she'll use it on one of us. I love Amy, but she's so, like... Come on, girl. Oh, every situation is a situation to point out how much she thinks Tattletale sucks. Actually, all my problems are Tattletale's fault, and I didn't do anything wrong. It was all Bonesaw and Tattletale. If they hadn't confronted me, anyway. Additional flopping from Taylor leads to Marquis saying, stop struggling, Weaver. Please relax. You took a gamble and you lost. You sit this one out. And, Marquis tries to have Spruce weaken the bone, pinning Taylor, like to ask him if he can do that. I assume he makes like a mini black hole type of thing, or I don't exactly know. I don't think we actually see him do it ever. But he doesn't think his power will be accurate enough anymore since he was in the birdcage for like 10 plus years. And he's like, I definitely could have done it 10 years ago. But I think if I do it right now, I'm either gonna, like, ultra kill Taylor or break the walls of the cave and collapse them in on her. So we better not fuck around with it. And, that's good. Good self-assessment. He knows he's got an unruly power that he hasn't practiced very much. Alien says, by far the most confusing part of the book on a first read. Do you mean... I'll let you expand on that. I'm not quite sure what you're referring to just because of the way the delay works between when I'm talking and when the chat happens. But where am I? Instead, Marquis is going to, like, try to release her by undoing the power right before he goes through the door. And he gives her a warning, like a complicated little speech that I like, where he's basically like, I know you got a million tricks. You got pepper spray and a gun and a... He kind of sounds like he's talking to the Aqua Teen Hunger Force version of... Who was the old head of the NRA? One of those crazy people. But in the Aqua Teen Hunger Force sketch, he jumps into the scene, shoots a guy, and yells, anyone without a gun and a knife and a handkerchief and a chapstick, get the fuck out. But anyway. Oh! Alien says the whole arc is the most confusing part. Alright, fair enough. Anyway, so Marquis gives her this whole speech, and he's like, but just stay there. And he gives Taylor an oath that he'll protect Tattletale. And, we know from, like, having seen Marquis in various situations that he's got, like, this super deep, like, code, and that even the one time he said he killed, like, Iron Rain, which would have been, Iron Rain would have been Kaiser's sister, Allfather's daughter, and he claims that he killed her so that he can get like a message out, and like through probably some clerical error, it's on record that he killed her, but we kind of know he didn't, and that he was just lying about that for some subterfuge reasons. But like, he's a guy who keeps his oaths and specifically never kills women. Anyway, after receiving this oath to protect Tattletale and being like, "Are you gonna work with me?" Then Taylor goes, "Eeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeee basically going to take that as a reluctant yes. And then she sort of goes about wobbling her head, goes through some extra difficult head shaking, like, no! And then he's just trying to get the hell out of there. Canary's about to leave through the door, and then she says some really heartfelt words about how Taylor should stay strong and not be too hard on herself, and more or less compares her time taking the cauldron vial and, like, ruining her own life for a couple years. And then she's like, it's all gonna be okay. And I say this as someone who was stuck in super jail for 2 years. And then, Marquis says that was kind and tries to get her to move along, but as he turns to watch Canary go, Taylor sort of shimmies free on one side, and then she grabs her gun, and then even in her own mind, she thinks that she's taking, like, reckless actions. She starts shooting, like, the bone that's point blank, like, right on top of her. She just starts blasting, and it's working. She's got a pretty good gun there, I guess. And as Taylor is breaking free from the bone, Marquis does, like, full bone armor on his body. It's tight enough that no bugs can get in. And since her size limit has been, like, increased as to the smallest bugs she can do, she can't get them in through his, like, eye holes or air holes or anything. Marquis starts filling the whole room with, like, a big sprouting tree of bone. This is the kind of fight where, like, I can't realistically see them doing a good version of this live action, but I can see an anime being, like, fucking awesome. He's sprouting the tree, trying to fill up the room to keep her back away from him, but, like, the second she's free of the bone pillar, she starts flight packing around. She's just, like, dip, duck, diving. She doesn't seem to have any control issues with the bugs in the flight pack. She's pretty well able to, like, do whatever she needs to do, which is a little surprising, but, whatever. And then, she's trying to shoot through the barrier that she's, like, flying up and trying to fly past, but after Marquis keeps reinforcing it and remaking the spots, she just runs out of bullets, and I don't think she even has, like, a second set of bullets or anything. It's just, like, she had the ones that were in the gun, and that's it. She's feeling panicky as it seems like she'll actually be left behind, and this is unacceptable. Taylor realizes that she's feeling another set of fear and panic. This part of her power isn't automatic like it had been for the bugs, but she consciously taps into this feeling and finds that Canary is in her range, just on the other side of the bone tree area, and just at the tail end of her range. So, Canary's frozen and waiting for instructions, like a bug. And now Marquis is trying to save Canary, he's like, oh, fuck, and actively trying to, like, bring Canary out of Taylor's range since she's near the limit. But she's wearing that Dragon Slayer armored suit, and it's, like, really, really strong, It's, like, top-tier power armor, probably as good as Defiance. Maybe it's not as good as Defiance, but, it's good. And she's able to, like, lunge forward, smashing her suit into and through a bunch of the bones. And then she just starts, like, punching and kicking her way through to Taylor. She's, like, wildly smashing barriers. And Marquis does start making the barrier faster than she can break it. Like, that kind of thing keeps happening. He's very fast at creating these bone things. And then Taylor starts using, she's like, kind of realizes that she's got a parahuman, not just a person in power armor, and that she can use Canary's actual power. And it takes a second to get it right, but she starts making Marquis approach. He like loses his senses. And also, this version of Canary, like, she's not able to make her speak, but she's able to get the, like, feeling right off the power. And she's even able to get it to work with all the weird cave acoustics. So, like, pretty impressive for a first power. We get the impression from Regent early in the book that, like, powers like this, because I imagine Canary's singing and, like, the sort of the Shatterbird singing are kind of similar, like, difficult to use powers when controlling somebody else. I think I have to take a momentary break, and so I'm going to leave people while I am on that momentary break with the song again. This time I'm going to crank the volume slightly. Hopefully it does not go too loud, but... All right. Should give everybody a clean sampling of the song, I guess. And I'm back. I'll start with this quote here. I was so used to a buzzing, to a dull roar of power in my ears. This was so much more complex and seductive. The emotions I was tapping into, linking myself to Canary on some level. And then after this moment where she feels the allure of the evil uses of Regent's power, I could remember being in Dragon and Defiant's grip, being hauled along on the way to the roof, so soon after killing Alexandria and Director Tag, struggling, futile, hopeless. And this is when Taylor gets the flashes of memories. She gets that the flashes of memories she's feeling are emotions being relayed to her about the people she's controlling. It's too complex for the power to feed her the full data of what it's like to be the other person, but her own memories are able to fill in as a substitute. And it says, she was me and I was her. Shared experience. She was an extension of myself. Taylor has mixed feelings on this, to say the least. Feeling unhinged and disconnected from herself. But she still steels herself for the idea that things will get worse, and she's planning to use this new power she sacrificed everything else to get. She steadies herself, and like another wave sort of crashing over her, notices that she can't even dig deep inside to find what a normal resting state for her body should be like. And just before Marquis is, just as he's about to walk into Taylor's range, Lung pulls up and blasts the whole room with fire. Canary and Marquis both have armor that keeps them from getting cooked, but it breaks the spell of the music, and Marquis starts running for the door. The noise of the flames just blocks out Canary's song. Piecing together that Canary is also being left behind, she punches through the remaining barrier that's no longer being replaced to Taylor, picks her up by the flight pack, and then throws her at the door like it's a Mario Sunshine level. She's just like, I'm Chuckster, and fucking throws her across the room. The flight pack engages right as she gets thrown, so that she gets extra speed and gets through the door right before it closes. I mumbled with more than a little anger in my voice. Having landed in the midst of these people, Taylor's in control of everyone who is near the door. She gets up and starts moving away, hobbling around. She's not giving instructions to people in her range. Even when Spruce is in her way, she just sort of shoves him out of the way with her good hand. And her main priority is still focused on fighting Scion. She can't stop thinking about it. It's a little reminiscent of when she gets transformed into a Tarsalus or whatever it's called, by that the bug box that Labrat gives her. And the new aspect of the power seems to be getting a little more natural as she's around more people. She can see herself through their eyes, and as she moves away from the people, she's leaving them behind so that they regain control of themselves. No one blasts her from behind, which is good, but Tattletale starts moving to follow her, staying just barely outside of her range. Scion's actively fighting as she moves out onto the battlefield. It's to the point where she's like, damn dog, did we already lose? The other capes, aside from Scion, are in full retreat, including Rachel and Aisha, carrying other wounded capes on Bastard. Taylor tries to move out of the way of their group so that they can get into the hospital, but they change course to sort of keep going for Taylor. And Tattletale's trying to wave people around, going go around, dangerous power. But one person still accidentally gets too close. But since he, stops running as he gets inside her range, then Tattletale's able to run up, yoink him by the back of the shirt or whatever, and then he's able to run off. Imp had noticed the guy losing control, but Taylor can't explain herself, so she focuses on collecting more bugs. Wisely, she's like, the bugs served me perfectly well up to now. It would make no sense to just only use my new power and not what remains of my old power. Very wise, that Taylor. Someone volunteered herself for non-invasive brain surgery from the lunatic with a sister complex. Or just as likely, she asked the lunatic psychopath for invasive brain surgery, and the other lunatic stepped in. Now Skitter's broken. That didn't look broken. That guy... Imp replied, nodding sagely. Now I understand. She can't talk. Taylor is able to shake her head and agree that she can't talk. So she's still got some functions at this point. But Rachel hops down from Bastard and actively, intentionally walks to get into Taylor's range. Taylor tries to move back and away, but Rachel enters her control. And then she walks Rachel back out of range. Why the fuck would you do that? Because she trusts me far too much. She's smarter than I am. Let her do what she needs to. I shook my head, backing away with my flight pack. Just so sweet and so sad. Taylor's sort of internally stated reason not to take Rachel is that her power isn't very compatible with being controlled. And, that's true, but I think it's fair to read between the lines and say that she doesn't want to wrap any of her friends into her swarm. Shit, she doesn't even want to take, Marquis and people she just tangentially knows. But yeah, Marquis and the group from before have made their way kind of over. Taylor knows they'll see her as too much like a wild card to work with, so this kind of spurs Taylor to leaving, and at the same moment Tattletale and Taylor both kind of know that she's leaving, so I think Taylor fully realizes it when Tattletale asks. And then Tattletale wishes her luck. Taylor takes to the air with the flight pack with a heavy heart, but reminds herself that she decided she'd know the route to victory when she saw it. Maybe it was good I couldn't speak, because I would have said the words if I'd had the ability, and we'd sworn not to. I had to think it instead, and this way they didn't need to hear it. Goodbye, Undersiders. Oh, devastating! So my final chapter thoughts. During the previous arc, while considering the remaining chapter art and such, Vic and I had discussed how 29.9 is like the last normal Taylor chapter. From the very beginning of this arc, this chapter 30.1, Taylor's losing control of herself, and in the same way that she views like the Taylor, Skitter, and Weaver to be separate aspects of herself, she's slipping into a new persona, yet unseen, undergoing a final, desperate metamorphosis. You thought she was Imago before? She's gonna be twice the Imago she was before. For those that don't know, that's a joke about how, she's a bug. And not only is she an adult bug, she is now a double adult bug. She's more adult than any of these other fools. Other chapter thoughts, I don't know. This is just a really, really good table setting for one of the most complicated, crazy parts of the story. I would definitely say the ending fight in this arc is the most multi-threaded, complicated thing. It makes the Echidna fight and the fight where Eidolon and Glastigüeñe team up to fight Scion. It makes those fights look a little pedestrian by comparison. Alien said, not an Octavia Butler joke. I think I don't know enough specific things about Octavia Butler to know what Octavia Butler joke I just told. So that's the unfortunate truth. Yeah, other arc stuff like Speck, I think it's kind of obvious that it's like they already have been talking in other portions how like they feel dwarfed by the size of their enemy, and like it keeps dawning on them how huge the enemy they're fighting is, all the way up to like the end of Venom when they like see the four-dimensional nature of the Garden of Flesh, and they're like, oh fuck, it's even crazier than I thought. Only Tattletale really had a sense for the scale. Yeah. Speck, good arc title. Did I already read this? This arc kicks off with a bang. Taylor starts off after a point of no return and only loses mental ground from here. Yeah. Characters. I listed Doormaker and the Clairvoyant. We do not get any characterization from Doormaker and the Clairvoyant. Marquis, Spruce, Cinderhands. Marquis gets a lot to do this chapter. I would say it's probably, outside of his own chapter, I think this is the most, like, the most Marquis content all at once. I don't think there's any other, like, chapter that's this heavy on him. He's like half the conversation. Spruce and Cinderhands, no real characterization. They don't really do anything. I guess with Spruce, we get that he's like a very reasonable guy who knows the limitations of his power and isn't gonna fuck around. So, you know, I've always kind of liked Spruce. We don't know that much about him, but he seems like a cool, slightly villainous. Like, he's got the villain tag, but he's one of those gentleman villains, so he does fit in with Marquis in that way. Next person I have is Canary, who, as stated by Marquis, like, she was very compassionate with what she had said to Taylor and very kind. Also, you know, I would say that this is a great chapter where, like, Marquis doing his, like, compromise with Tattletale, like, we get a sense that he's very practical, very reasonable, and, like, sometimes in, like, little catty ways, he's, like, impolite to Lung when they're messing around and when they're drinking tea, but, like, generally, he kind of, like, is what he pretends to be, you know? Marquis, great guy. And also terrible guy. Who knows? Yeah, Canary. You know, she's just a little slow on exiting the door. But Lung, of course, this is yet another time when Lung's like, I can't believe she pulled one over on me again. She just keeps doing it. He's fucking pissed, bro. And he's like, I'm tired of people telling me to be nice and not murder people. I'll do what I want. But he, in fact, does not do what he wants. Bonesaw. I like this view of Bonesaw. She's like, reverts to being super dangerous, but for good. I think Bonesaw's like a super interesting character post her stopping doing the little girl persona. Like, whenever she's not doing the little girl stuff, I really like Bonesaw. But when she's doing the little girl thing, I'm like, ugh, you're as bad as Jack. Um, Amy. Amy once again becomes shamey. She feels. I mean, she did fuck up Taylor and screw this up, but I don't know. It's like weird to think about because I do think it's very like I think her freak out is not to do with Taylor being all right or being not all right. It's entirely to do with like selfish reasons like I kind of feel like Amy would be like this is fine if it had been anyone else who did it. Um Not because she wants there to be like a mind broken Taylor, but because like I guess my point is just that I think the core reason Amy is like freaking out is just her own mental peace. She's just like, no, I can't believe I screwed up again, and everyone's gonna tell me I'm a fuck up. I do think that Amy's like really, really self centered, more so than is directly seen in Worm. Um, but what we got? We got Aisha. Aisha's she's only gets to be in it for a couple lines, but I don't know. I always see Aisha in these moments where everyone else is like, Taylor, what have you done? And I'm thinking, and she's like, oh, that's cool. What have you done? Like when Taylor gets her arm burned and she's all like a mega creep before she gets any of the healing. Then she's like, finally, the Taylor I know, a creep. Um, I think Aisha is a great supportive presence in Taylor's life, frankly, because whenever Taylor's doing her most bug-like activities, Aisha's like, this is a Taylor I can get behind. Which is also true of Rachel. They're the two who really appreciate her bug-like behaviors. I think that this is one of the sweetest moments in the whole story when Rachel intentionally goes into the bubble of control and then when Taylor intentionally walks her out of the control. It's probably the type of thing where like I am of the opinion that the connection between Taylor and Lisa is more meaningful, but I understand why most Worm readers I've talked to think that the connection between Rachel and Taylor is more meaningful. It's a very sweet, very very unspoken connection for most of it, but yeah, there's a reason Tattletale gets to be the last one before Taylor on this list. Because, oh my god, their relationship. This is also like I know in my heart of hearts that Tattletale is ace and will always be ace. But on the other hand, my shipping meter, my shipping radar, whatever, it starts going crazy when this chapter's happening. It's like, clearly, Lisa and Taylor are doomed lovers. But yeah, Lisa is like, she's like, look, you screwed up, and I'm mad at you, but also I will facilitate you doing whatever it is you want to do, even now. And we're like, Lisa, you are the true homie. And Taylor, of course, Taylor is losing her ability to control herself. She's acting more and more on her moment-to-moment feelings, which she can no longer sort of push down. Everything's coming to the surface. Actually, there's kind of a line in Ward where they talk about this. It's like where things get reversed between like the inside and the outside when there's like these certain things that happen to people, and it's kind of like that's very true. Like normally her outside was very like analytical over top of her like very emotional core that was compartmentalizing, and now like she's analyzing things without having to focus on that, but then her like surface level is just her emotions like spilling out, like, and it's not exactly one to one, but it's at least a connection to some other stuff. Man, I can't wait to get to Ward. I just love Ward so much. Alien, you gotta read Ward when we go through it. I know it's gonna be another like month or 2 or 3 before we get to Ward, but I am excited for it. It is so good. Beep, beep, boop, boop, boop. I don't feel like I have much more to say in the characters section, so I'm gonna move on from it. We are at the powers, knowledge, and world building. I didn't write down that much for how like powers heavy this is, but we've heard over and over again in previous chapters that things like second trigger events will make changes that can't be undone. I think it's been described as like walls being knocked down and as doors being smashed open in a way they can't be closed again, like various metaphors and things. And we're seeing that in action. They once they changed the thing, they couldn't change the thing back. Also, I was reading 10.x, or yeah, I think that, yeah, 10.x to someone in the last week or so, which is Regent's interlude right after the Undersiders kidnap Sophia, where he's pretending that he's given up control of Sophia, etc. And there are strong parallels between how Taylor like feels versus how Alec feels when controlling a cape, and how they both find it like exhilarating, and that it's like more like it is like more overwhelming than just being a single person, like because they're feeling more than they could possibly have felt in the previous iteration just by dint of having a second person. Imagine when she steps it up to having a bazillion people. I also realized at the time that I am not sure how Regent's power let him see through people's eyes. Like, I get how Taylor's does, but I'm not really understanding the connection between how he sees what they sees. But it must let him see through their eyes because he sees people's faces and what's on phone screens. So he's not just using her like unconscious reactions to things to gauge what he's looking or what she's looking at. So because he can see through their eyes, it's a much more direct like parallel, and the way that he controls people feels similar. I even have like a spot here, just like a brief example. Using the shadow form, she could cover a lot of ground very quickly. For long minutes, he exercised her power, the ability to be as light as a feather, enjoyed it. He even liked running, too, when she turned off her power and just legged it. This girl was in good shape. He could tell she exercised regularly, that she ran on a regular basis. Running was almost effortless, and it felt good. Even with the aches and pains of the recent brawl, months or years of practicing had fine-tuned her body. Fighting had been much the same way, but it had been even better. Her muscle memory had been so primed for punching, kicking, takedowns, and evading that he'd almost been able to let her go on autopilot, let her body handle things on its own. So yeah, that felt like a Taylor bug controlling people. Regent, even when he starts losing control, he has like a corollary amount that he starts like slurring his own words and stuttering. So it felt like it's not a one-to-one, but he also has control issues that backfire on him and such. So it's just interesting to connect all them dots and see how similar their powers were in the end. Despite her being so freaked out by his power. Oh, yes. And then I wanted to get into the actual nitty-gritty details. I was left with the ruins of my power. My range was maybe a third of what it might otherwise be, the control rough-edged at best. There were bugs in my swarm that I couldn't control, too small. There were too many things to concentrate on. The swarm, the nuances of my power, my state of near panic, and the fact that I no longer felt like a complete, connected human being. The other stuff, it wasn't that it wasn't important, but it was so secondary. And then, I know I said this part earlier, I think in a direct quote, but I still think it's really good. She was me, and I was her. Shared experience. She was an extension of myself. Yeah. Oh, things will only get more out of control from here. Well, boop, 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 boop. I'm sure there's a lot more power stuff I could say, but I will be talking about this, shift in her powers and its continuing effects and changes over the next chapters. Even if you ain't never read the future chapters, I think you can tell from here that it's only going to get worse for Taylor. Yes, the audience participation question. 30.1. What other power alterations could have helped against Scion instead of Amy working on Taylor? And I had kind of meant... I didn't want to have to, make the question super heavy-handed, but I'm also fine with answers that are what could they have done to try to change Taylor's power differently, or, I don't know, whatever you feel like. And to read the answer that we have in the chat, or in the Discord answers, we've got from Vic, probably someone with an alternate reality power, maybe someone like Labyrinth, especially because she has experience working with power broke brain. Maybe she could have merged all the realities together on the battlefield to make attacks against Scion more effective. Yeah, that could be true. Or maybe with an unbound power, she could break the barrier that Scion has on his own body that stops them from directly attacking into the 4-dimensional well of flesh. So that's a good idea. Unbounding Labyrinth's power. Yeah, it's hard to say. I'm not sure if an unbounded power or a broken then unbroken power could overcome Scion's invincibility, but it sort of seems like something like that. What if you could make Usher's power? Usher can give other people benefits and minor powers, kind of like Othala, but he only has to focus. He doesn't have to direct touch. So let's say we unbound Usher's power to the point where he can affect Scion, and then instead of giving him a boon, he gives him some horrible bane, I don't know, reverses his healing or something, to where instead of ultra healing, his body is constantly degrading itself away or something. If we had to come up with an alternate way to beat Scion, I think that unbounding someone's power who could possibly affect his relationship to his body and his power overriding most other powers, that could be good. I don't think it would work, but also maybe changing Dinah's brain so that she didn't get thinker headaches. If you could make her power not give her thinker headaches, then she could just go completely ham with it, and maybe she could ask so many how do we get this exact outcome type of questions so constantly that they could like guide their actions well enough to like get the right powers on the battlefield. I don't know. I do think there are more options that could have won the day, not just Taylor. Sometimes it's fun to think that Taylor's uniquely awesome, though. You know what? I didn't have a question for 30.2, but I've just come up with one. It's are there any capes you think would be a direct detriment to fighting Scion? And I'm sure there are, so we'll just let other people think up their answers, and hopefully I'll have thought some up by the next stream as well. I've posted that in the Discord. I'm actually just gonna, the new song's short enough. I'm gonna quickly read the outro stuff, and then I'll play the song solo. The opening and ending song for this is Speck by our good friend ScarlettXOX. You can find her work at twitch.tv/Scarlett_Rogue. Our Discord server link can be found in the description of the stream and the channel description. The author of the work being discussed can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/Wildbow. The full text of the work is available for free online at parahumans.wordpress.com, and there is also a fan-made audiobook of the entire work, one of them at audioworm.rain-online.org, and the other at abaddonproductions.org. And cheers to you as well, Greg. Thank you for being here. Let's mute my mic and start that beautiful song again.